So let's talk about whether an equation defines our variable y as a function of x. And perhaps the first thing we need to think about is, what do we mean by function? And by definition, that means that each x value corresponds to a single y value. So let's look at A, and in order to determine an answer to this question, we want to solve for y in every equation. So in the first one, to solve for y, I'm going to subtract x squared from both sides. So now I have y squared equals 8 minus x squared. And now to get rid of the square of y, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So that'll be the square root of the y squared. And that will equal plus or minus the square root of everything on the right. And now to simplify, we have that y equals plus or minus the square root of 8 minus x squared. So that means any value that we put in for x is going to provide an output that is two values. So if we let x equal 1, then we would have y equals plus or minus square root of 1 squared is 1, plus or minus the square root of 7. So y equals two values. So this is not a function. In fact, if you look at a graph of this, you pull up Desmos, look at a graph, you'll find that this is a circle. We have x squared and y squared. So in part B, we've got x squared plus y equals 3. Solving for the y, we subtract x squared from both sides again. Now we have y equals 3 minus x squared. Now there's not a square root for us to take this time. So this is all we're going to do. Now we're going to think, if I put a value in for x, do I get one value out or multiple values? Let's let x equal 1. So then y would be 3 minus, and 1 squared again is 1. Y would equal 2. And that would be the only value that y would equal when x is 1. And this may look familiar if we rewrite this in this form. Y equals negative x squared plus 3. We know that that would be a parabola. It's opening down, has a y-intercept at 3. Since our x squared is negative, we know it opens down. And that would pass the vertical line test. So we know that that is a function. So we have a yes here. Part C, I'm going to turn this around first so that I have my y squared on the left. So I'm not changing anything except rotating around on an axis going down through the equal sign. I have y squared. I want y. So again, I'm going to take the square root. And when I take the square root of y, and I take the plus or minus square root of the other side, I get y equals plus or minus the square root of x plus 4. And again, when we put one x value in, we get both a plus and minus value out. So that cannot be a function. And actually, if you look at a graph of this, it looks similar to a parabola, except it's sideways. And we know that would not pass the vertical line test. And our last one is a rational function, because it's a fraction. It's already solved for y. Y equals 3 divided by x plus 1. So we just think, if we put a value in, if I put a value of x equals 1 in, how many values for y? What are the outputs for that? I would have 3 over 1 plus 1, which would be 2. So when I put in one x value, I get out one y value. And we kind of know what this looks like. We're going to have a vertical asymptote at -1. And it will come this way and approach the vertical asymptote. And it goes this way and you have a horizontal asymptote at the y-axis. Now that would pass the vertical line test. So this is a yes. So the process here is to solve the equation for y and then determine whether or not one input, one value for x is put into the function, how many outputs come out, how many answers come out.